So, as you guys all know, in 2023, in the 2023 season, Matt Rule was hired, to be Nebraska's head coach and brought in a whole new staff, obviously. And the Nebraska defense switched to the 3-3 stack defense as their base defense. This was a drastic change, as Nebraska fans have pretty much only known the 4-3 and the 3-4 traditional defenses that Nebraska fans were just used to seeing. So many fans kind of spent the entire offseason trying to learn what the 3-3 was going to look like under Tony White and Matt Rule, how it will work, kind of just what to expect. And I'm just going to make things simple and easy as I can. So here's something what I'm going to try and do with this here is I'm going to kind of explain some of the adjustments I saw throughout the season. And I'm going to explain some of these so that if you don't know very much about football, you can kind of follow along here. But I've also figured out that a full X's and O's talk is just not what people want to see. It's just not very going to tune in with the general fan. So I'm going to try and keep this as basic as I can. Um, so what the 3-3 stack defense is, if you don't know what it is it 3-3 defense consists of 3 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, and then 5 defensive backs. Okay. The 6-man box, as opposed to the traditional box, so you'd think of it as 4-3 with 7 in the box. 3-4, also 7 in the box. So the 4-2-5 and the 3-3 only have 6 D linemen and linebackers. What that allows you to do in the passing game is you can keep your personnel the same without having to switch guys in and out. Because what you can do is what Nebraska calls their rover. It's kind of like a safety linebacker hybrid where they can walk down and play the run. Sometimes they'll have run responsibilities, right? But what it allows you to do in the passing game is not have to switch very many personnel changes. So it's the same looking personnel. Nebraska stays in pretty much the same personnel. Like they'll have substitutions, but they'll sub a D lineman for a D lineman or a linebacker for a linebacker, right? Um, that just kind of it allows you. So instead of having to bring in a nickel back on passing situations where they have 3 or 4 wide receivers and you want to bring in a nickel back, what that allows you to do is not have to switch out your personnel. Um, the stack look on the defense allows you to bring pressure from a lot of different angles. Here's always the way I think about it as well. Okay. So imagine you're a quarterback trying to set, or center quarterback trying to set the protection. You're in charge of doing that. In a traditional 4-3 too high safety look, you can look and say, all right, I got the 4 defensive linemen coming at me. I got 3 linebackers. All 3 of those are probably going to be dropping back into coverage. You also know you got your 2 corners, probably 2 safeties, depending on the look. This example, I'll say it's too high. You also know they're going to be dropping back into coverage. So you can kind of base the coverage based off that. And you'll know, hey, if it's a blitz, it'll probably be a late pickup blitz as long as they're not showing it early. But you can know in a basic 4-man situation, they're going to drop 7. You know what's coming at you, okay? Now, in the 3-3 stack, you now have to think of it this way. Okay, the only 3 people you know are coming, especially if they're lined up in the traditional 3, like the stack, you only know 3 people are coming at you, right? The 3 linebackers, you probably know one of them's coming. You might have 2, and if all 3 of them come, you're screwed if it's a cover 0 look. Cover 0, all that means is that you're sending 6 people, and the 5 DBs back are all man-to-man, no help over the top. It's all straight zone. So you don't know that. And the thing with I've coached in a 3-3 defense, and the biggest thing that is one of the biggest things you'll never see the same front twice. And all that really means is you're going to be bringing pressure from all different angles. That's the biggest thing is stunts, blitzes, different angles are big, and you always have to communicate. So what the 3-3 stack does for the center or quarterback trying to figure this out is especially you're going to have people moving pre-snap. Everyone's moving. So now if you're the quarterback trying to figure out who's coming, where's pressure coming from, people are going to be moving a lot. You don't know where it's coming from. Is that rover coming at me? Are these linebackers coming at me? Are they coming through the A gap? Are they coming through the B gap? Are they coming from the edge? Oh crap, this guy I thought was coming is actually going out to the flats. So now I don't know what to do. So that's something, a lot of confusion. That's why I personally like the 3-3 stack. Me personally, my defense that I would be running when I'm coaching is a 4-2-5, which we'll kind of get into a little bit of that as well. But 3-3 stack I've coached in before. I think is a great defense. And I just kind of wanted to give you a look. we kind of so in 2023 we got to see what the 3-3 defense looked like. We got a whole season of seeing what that looked like, right? And now we have a whole season of not only seeing what that looks like for Nebraska, but also we get a look into Tony White and the whole defensive staff is what changes did they make throughout the year, and we can kind of take a look at what they did and what I think might carry over into 2024. I don't really know why they made some of these changes. Some of them I do. So the constant throughout the entire season, one thing remained constant is we stayed in the same 3-3-5 personnel, right? Again, what that means is three down linemen, three linebackers, two corners, two safeties, ish. Sometimes we kind of played that a little bit different. And then we had a rover. Like I said, the rover's a safety linebacker type that pretty much on all the snaps, I'd say above 80% of them were the basic 3-3-5 personnel, which under previous regimes, I'll say like Scott Frost, with the Eric Chenander defense and Bo Pelini, and I try and block out the Mike Riley stuff, but um, uh, just kind of looking through my previous kind of game notes and things, I'd guess around most teams around 60 to 65% their base personnel. So, because you got to think though, if they're running the traditional 7-man front passing situations, they're bringing in a nickelback or sometimes they're bringing in a dime, right? So that kind of really changes things up. And all nickel and dime means is just bringing in that extra defensive back. Nickel's one, dime is two. It, our 3-3 already gives us 5 DBs on the field, so we don't have to do for that. Every now and then last season, it was very rare, but they did bring in what I guess I would call the nickel look. It's kind of hard to call it a nickel because nickel usually means 5 DBs, but I'll say it's a nickel because we're bringing in one extra. So I guess it depends. You call it a dime, you can call it nickel, but sometimes we'd usually sub out a linebacker for bringing in a extra DB. That was very rare, but we did see it a little bit last year. Um, it was obviously in passing situations. I expect more of the same this season based on personnel. I don't expect that to change. I expect us to stay in our 3-3. Even if we change the look, which I'm going to get into, they did change the look a bit in the second half of the season. I always expect us to have three down linemen, three linebackers, and 5 DBs for, again, 80-ish% of the snaps. They may walk that jack linebacker up. All that jack linebacker is for our jack linebacker is what they call it in the 3-3 stack here at Nebraska. Is basically just a linebacker that can walk up and also play. I don't want to say defensive line, but he can be an edge rusher. He can set the edge. He can have outside contain. If you get a versatile enough guy, you can put him on that edge. Then he can actually get out to the flat. So you think he's coming, he's covering the flats, and it throws quarterbacks for a loop. Um, but I will say, through the second half of the season last year, kind of changed. In the first half of the season, I am curious to see if this sticks. So, first half of the season, we basically stayed in the 3-3 stack quite a bit. Like, obviously, backers would widen out a little bit, but it'd still be a 3-3 look. Um, Occasionally, throughout the first half of the season, I can't remember the exact game this switch, but occasionally what we would do is we take that jack linebacker and put him on the edge. So we're showing a 4-2-5 shell while staying in the same 3-3 personnel. Um, so we'd be sending four, and you know who was coming pretty much. And it was again showing the 4-2-5 look, but running our 3-3 personnel, which I thought was interesting, and I really liked it. When we did bring an extra backer, Nebraska really likes to blitz. Tony White really likes to blitz the A gaps right next to the center, get pressure right in the quarterback's face. It's very hard to handle if you're a quarterback. If you can get a free rusher through right there, it's pretty much game over. If the quarterback does get the ball away, it's just going to be a throwaway or just trying to get the ball out. So bringing A gap pressure is really big in a Tony White defense. I will say this 4-2-5 look did really well. This is the change that, although I really, really liked it, I'm not sure why they switched to that. And I've asked two position coaches on staff, and I have not heard back from either of them as of the recording of this video. I don't know why they made that switch. I told them, hey, if you can't answer, you can't answer. But I just kind of I'm curious on why they made that switch to stay in the same 3-3 personnel, but they kind of, I'd say it was about 50-50 at the end of the season. Obviously, they still ran that 3-3, but I'd say about 50-50-ish, give or take. I'd say they walked up that jack linebacker quite a bit last year. I don't really know why, and I'm curious I don't know why. I'm interested to see if that sticks this year. Um, that second half of the season, like I said, they ran almost 50-50. And if you're just like the common fan, not understand, like not knowing what you're looking at, and I don't, if you don't coach or play or whatever, I don't blame you. Like a lot of times it could look like we're running a whole different defense if you're like, wait, we got 4 down linemen out there. No, we don't. One of those is just a jack linebacker. Um, so both 3-3 and the 4-2-5 look were very effective at getting results. I'd say, although our record the last month of the year was not where we wanted it to be, that I think if you talk to anybody, that wasn't the defensive fault. I think the defense played out of their mind. It was very effective. I don't know whether they changed to this due to just scouting their opponents. They thought it'd be a better look, or maybe the defensive staff just really fell in love with this and they wanted to split it up 50-50. So I am interested to see if that comes back this year. And I will say the biggest thing this does for our opponents, especially our first month opponents, you got a game plan for running the 3-man front or the 4-man front. 'Cause I'll tell you as a coach, if you're expecting one thing, you didn't really game plan that well for the other, and they come out running a 3-man front or a 4-man front and you only prepared for one of them, you are beyond screwed, and it's going to throw everything for a loop. And obviously Division 1 coaches are prepared for everything. I'm not saying that, but they're going to have to put a lot of game planning time into both fronts, because but literally by the end of the season, we're running at about 50-50 last year. I think I was trying to keep some tallies of it throughout the last 3 or 4 games, and I think it was like 51% for 4-man front, which is interesting. The other adjustment they made throughout the year, which is kind of a fun one that I honestly wasn't really expecting, they really switched from a primarily zone coverage team to more of a man-to-man look, and it was still about 50-50. But this transition to the more man-to-man looks came right around the time they started switching to running that 4-man front as well. Um, Early in the season, we saw lots of cover 3 or variations of the cover 3. And if you don't know what the cover 3 is, I'll kind of explain it to you. All that really means is 3 deep. 3 deep. Nebraska runs a lot of single high safety looks, which just means there's 1 deep safety. So all the cover 3 really means is generally a basic cover 3, which are 2 outside corners would have a deep zone, and that middle safety would also have a deep zone. And then everything underneath was playing hooks or flats or whatever. So you got however many you have underneath, but you got 3 deep zones. That's all cover 3 means. To where the 3 comes from. Early on in the season, we did run a little bit of cover 2. I honestly, just what I had read about Tony White before, I was expecting a little bit more cover 2, but we didn't see very much of that at the beginning of the year. We barely saw it at the end of the year. And when they did go cover man-to-man, it was generally a cover 1. What cover 1 means, again, for those of you who don't know, I know a lot of you will, but some of you might not. All cover 1. Cover 1's a man-to-man concept. Everyone's matched up, except you're probably going to, one guy's generally going to be your single high safety, is going to be a deep zone to basically cover up any messes, right? A lot of times he'll handle posts, or sometimes he'll just handle a go route that corner just gets toasted. He might have to get all the way from the middle of the field over there. That's all that is. Basically just cleaning up the messes. And you can run cover 1 from any shell defensively. Any look you want to give. It's pretty basic look that almost every team in the country is going to run, even at the high school level. Like I said, I kind of was expecting a little bit more cover 2, but it became apparent by game 2 or 3 that this defense was going to be pretty much primarily cover 3 and cover 1 variations. Now they switch who's covering what. They do a lot of tricks with that. A great part about our defense and all the versatile personnel we have. But it became pretty apparent if you knew what you were watching that by game 2 or 3, this was going to be a primarily cover 3 and cover 1 team. As the season progressed more throughout the year, and we saw that jack linebacker being walked up more, we were seeing that 4-2-5 shell. We started seeing a lot more cover 1, and we started seeing some cover 0. And again, I explained cover 0 was just everybody blitzing except for the 5 all manned up, right? I strongly believe the reason that look got more was just because of how much better, in particular, our corners got better at man-to-man coverage throughout the year. So I think we kind of it kept the offense guessing on their toes, because you can keep cover 1 and cover 3, especially if you're on that single high shell. You can keep it looking pretty similar until post snap, right? Until you distinguish that. But so to the quarterback, it looks pretty much the same. It looks pretty much the same, but then you realize, oh crap, this is man, or oh crap, this is zone, and now you're trying to figure out who's got what. You got to find the open zone. This got really balanced out by the end of the season, and I think that's a big thing. Tony White does like to bring cover 0 in big spots. But I think if our cornerback room, which I don't think we're worried about that, but I do think we at least got to keep an eye on the depth there. If through the first couple scrimmages and all that we don't get burned. I'm really excited to see the first couple games. I think Colorado is going to be a big test. If we run a lot of man to man against Colorado and do well, I think we stick with it. I think if we don't, then we might have to adjust. Colorado is going to have some speed, so we're going to see there. I do expect more cover three against Colorado than I would. I think game one, UTEP, we're going to see a mixture of both. I think we're going to try a lot of things against UTEP, just see what sticks. But I am interested to see. I think we'll run some man, especially in the back half of the year again. But that was a very interesting switch. And again, that was good for us because it keeps the offensive guessing, and you don't really know. You don't really know because if again you're looking at it, who knows what to expect. It looks pretty much the same. So all in all, I do expect Nebraska's defense to look similar, to especially to start the year. I am very curious to see game one how much we walk that jack linebacker up. I don't really know what to expect there, so I'm curious about that. Or if we do stick primarily to that 3-3 stack look, I don't. I UTEP, I do think we're going to try a lot of things out. I don't think we're going to run a ton of everything or a ton of one thing a ton because we don't want to give a ton of film out because I think we can handle UTEP. Could be completely wrong on that. Again, I've always said UTEP, I don't care about the final score as much as I care about how did we look, how did we run our stuff. Tony White's defense is full of fantastic coaches. Every single defensive coach we have on that staff, I fully position coaches. I think every single one of them is going to become a defensive coordinator, and some of them will become head coaches. So we got great defensive staff. We bring everybody back there. I have full faith that this defense is going to be a great force in the Big Ten. Statistically, they may take a little bit of a step back, and I'm not saying that as a diss. I'm just saying like they were so good last season. I don't know how they take many steps forward. But what I do expect, even if they take statistically a little bit of a step back, I think situationally on third down in big spots, I do think that they are going to be situationally better just because of all the talent they have and all the great coaching that we have. So I would like to hear some of your thoughts on what you expect from Nebraska's defense this year. Like I said, they did have a few changes last year throughout the year if you knew what you were looking at, and I went back and watched a bunch of those games. So I am kind of curious to see how some of that looks coming into 2024. The biggest one I am is curious to see if we stick with the 3-3 stack or if we switch to the 4-2, the four-man front with the two inside backers again. I am curious to see. I think we had the depth to be able to run man to man last year, so we ran a lot of cover one. So we'll see how much of that sticks. This is just my observations from last year. Some things to watch for. Some people might not know anything what they're looking at. So as we get closer to the season, I will give a more detailed look at here what to look for when you're watching the game.